From Okarun's most useless form to the one with the most wasted potential. And the last one might actually be a hint at Okarun being the final villain? First, occult nerd form. This is Okarun without powers, yet he's still more useful than Kuki, Kinta, and half the aliens combined. When we first meet him in chapter 1 alongside Momo, he's skinny, short, hiding behind nerd glasses, basically the classic target for school bullies. And as if the glasses weren't bad enough, he had his other problem, a hobby in the occult, aliens, UFOs, the UAPs in Okarun's words. He didn't have any friends at school. Everyone basically thought he was a crazy nutcase. Even Momo thought he was weird when they first talked. But since she was equally obsessed with spirits, the two synced up fast. One thing led to another, and then came their dare. Okarun went to the tunnel, Momo to Serpo's turf, setting the entire story in motion. That's when Turbo Granny stole his manhood, and his powers were born. But even without that trigger, Okarun would have been a valuable teammate. His occult obsession meant he had a real knowledge about aliens, UMAs, and supernatural lore. Outside of Seiko and Turbo Granny, not many people knew more than him. So even if he wasn't fighting on the front lines, he would have been the guy in the chair, the behind-the-scenes brain every superhero squad needs. Number 2, Turbo Curse form. This is Okarun's strongest form, period. It all started with that stupid dare. Turbo Granny ambushed Okarun with what we'll politely call a very forward introduction. So Okarun did the only sane thing any man would do. He ran. But there was a problem. Turbo Granny outran him with ease, and the curse kicked in. Basically, anyone Turbo Granny beats in a race will be a victim of her curse, and Okarun wasn't an exception. She took over his body completely. Okarun tried to fight back with sheer willpower, but she buried him under her control. The only silver lining was, in that form, Okarun's body jumped through a phone signal and straight to the alien hideout, just in time to disrupt Serpo's assault on Momo. That chaos triggered Momo's psychic awakening, letting her destroy Serpo. But the victory didn't last long. Turbo Cursed Okarun immediately turned on Momo, pinning her down and nearly killing her on the spot. Momo had to blast him with psychic powers just to keep him contained. After they escaped the hideout, later at Ayase's house, the Flatwoods monster ambushed them. With Momo's help, Okarun briefly controlled the curse power, but once his stamina broke, Turbo Granny wrestled back control. Momo was almost done for, until Seiko stepped in and lured the monster into a trap, saving them both. Here's the scary part. If Momo and Seiko weren't around, Turbo Granny's will would have completely devoured Okarun's. Unlike him, she had no limits on her output. From the start, she could casually hijack phone networks for teleportation. So just imagine how unstoppable would he have been if he'd simply surrendered and let Turbo Granny drive. And because he didn't give in, with Momo's help, Okarun was able to get the next form, the suppressed turbo form. In a way, this form did more harm than good. We first saw it during the Flatwoods monster fight. After escaping Serpo, Okarun and Momo barely had time to breathe before Flatwoods ambushed them at Ayase's house. Okarun, still just the occult nerd, was dead weight in a direct fight. Momo, still new with her own powers, couldn't finish Flatwoods either. So she did the unthinkable, blasted Okarun with her psychic energy, forcing Turbo Granny's curse to awaken, but without letting it fully possess him. For the first time, Okarun unlocked super speed while keeping his consciousness, and suddenly he was moving like lightning. His attacks were still pretty limited. All he could do was mostly feral bites and turbo headbutts, but still strong enough to shake Flatwoods. The problem was that he couldn't hold the form for long. Once his stamina broke, Turbo Granny was waiting to hijack his body, and she did. If Seiko hadn't shown up, Okarun would have gone full monster, munched Momo, and Seiko would have exorcised him right there. This form only lasted a handful of chapters, but in that time it nearly killed Momo, cost Okarun his family jewels, and almost flipped the entire story off the rails. And it was also the first real preview of just how insane Okarun's potential could be once he truly mastered Turbo Granny's powers. 4. The True Turbo form. This is the form that defined Okarun as a main character, but ironically it was also the one where he was nerfed the hardest. After Turbo Granny was sealed inside the cat doll, Okarun still kept her powers. For the first time, he could actually use them on his own, and in this form he wrecked most of the villains in the story. He fought Acrobatic Silky and held the upper hand, then tag team Nessie, Serpo and Mantis Trip alongside Momo and Ida. In the Cursed House arc, he literally one-shotted Tsuchinoko with a headbutt. Sure, it regenerated, but the fact that he could flatten something on that tier said a lot about his raw power. He even clashed with Gigi under Evil Eye's possession and pulled off the win. Later he trained with Musical Portraits, though that training didn't help much when he ran into Core, because Core folded him badly. Okarun skipped straight to his coma arc. And here's where the nerf comes in. Even at his peak, his biggest trump card was taken off the table. Turbo Granny had juiced his Dragon Balls with so much energy that they could grant actual spiritual awakenings. Add an UNGR proof. Even Core wanted them to open the portal. So imagine the firepower Okarun could have had if he still had those while wielding Granny's curse. Sadly, we'll never know. 5. The Astral form. In my opinion, this is actually his weakest form. Okarun, without any powers, is probably actually more useful than he was in his Astral form. After Core handed him the worst beatdown of his life, he went into a coma. While the squad trained for the rematch, his body was out cold, but his willpower went rogue. His soul slipped out, leaving him wandering as a ghost. Think of him like Bargain Bin Doctor Strange. He could float, phase through walls, see and hear everything, but nobody could hear him. He screamed, cried, and begged. Nothing. At least as a nerd he was bait. Here, he wasn't even that. His one breakthrough came when he grabbed a ringing phone. Instead of answering, he got sucked through the lines and landed at Seiko's place, right in the middle of Turbo Granny and Seiko fighting a Hokkaido yokai. That's where the grannies explained the Astral form, how to ride phone spirals, how to channel spiral energy. Okarun practiced, zipped back into his body, and that was it. The form never showed up again. In a way, this was less of a form and more of a learning experience. Coming up is Okarun's true turbo form, version 2. Honestly, this form was kind of a letdown. Instead of a true evolution, it felt more like a consolation prize after the Core beat Okarun into a coma. After his Astral crash course, Okarun snapped back into his body just as the squad was fighting Core. He jumped in, dropped some hints about spiral energy, and suddenly the whole team was pulling off upgraded moves. Critical hits started flying everywhere. Okarun himself applied the spiral trick to his own style. His speed, reflexes, and power spiked. Even his basic strikes turned lethal. At full throttle he blitzed like lightning, one-shotting a Core in its exosuit in a single blast. But here's the problem. Why couldn't he do this from the start? If Seiko and Turbo Granny knew spirals made everything stronger, why wait until after the coma arc to mention it? It's like handing out cheat codes only after the boss already wiped the party once. And even with this flashy upgrade, his core limits didn't really budge. Basically, V2 looked good on paper, but under the hood nothing much had changed. The next form is Full Mutation. This mode was so broken the author basically had to delete it, just to give the rest of the cast a fighting chance. During the Danmata arc, thanks to the fairy tale card scheme, Momo got trapped inside the cursed Danmata. Okarun had already burned through 2 all-outs and was running on fumes. But seeing Momo in danger, he snapped his past limit and went all out a 3rd time. This time, the Turbo Granny form mutated. His jaw mask stretched wider, and with jagged teeth. His nerd glasses melted into glowing beast eyes. His hair wiped long and wild. But while he got a power-up, his strategy went to shit. He became less brain, more fists. He tanked blows that would have killed him, and dished out hits with feral speed and monstrous power. Basically, Okarun went full beast mode. Strong enough that along with Count Saint Germain, he tore through the fairy tale card yokai. At this point, Okarun was at his absolute peak with Turbo Granny's power. If he had pushed this mutation further, and especially if he'd gotten his Dragon Balls back, he might even rival Seiko one day. Which is probably why the author quietly shuffled him into the next form, to make sure the others still had some screen time. His Occult nerd form, but an enhanced version. Believe it or not, this form is half the reason a brand new villain showed up. After the Danmata arc, Okarun got his 2nd ball back. Yes, the collection was finally complete. And the very next moment, Turbo Granny demanded her powers back. Okarun, being the polite nerd he is, handed them over. Just like that. No more transformations, no claws, no masks, back to plain old occult geek, or so it seemed. When the school fitness tests rolled around, Okarun shocked everyone. Despite losing Granny's curse, his body had leveled up beyond belief. He crushed every test without breaking a sweat. Maybe it was just battle experience. Maybe it was leftover turbo energy in his family jewels. But Okarun had turned into the gym class final boss. And the bullies who once smacked him around panicked. Hase, the ringleader, got so desperate to keep the old pecking order alive that he took Count Saint Germain's deal and became the Jumping Crone. And that forced Okarun to accept the subpar next form, Nano Skin Armored form. After losing Turbo Granny's curse, this was the form that had the most potential to make Okarun lethal. During the Kozuka Knives arc, Hase, now powered up as Jumping Crone, and Jet Booster Kur ambushed Okarun. With Aira off helping Koki, Okarun was stuck with Kinta. Luckily, Kinta whipped out some alien nanoskin and built battlesuits for both of them. Okarun's armor was a sleek black nanosuit, basically Iron Man by way of alien tech. It mimicked his old Turbo Granny moves, complete with jet boosters on the back and legs for dashes, hovering, and aerial assaults. The heels had pile bunkers, explosive pistons that could smash the ground with shockwaves or rocket kick enemies into next week. The suit boosted his speed, agility, and defense. We even saw its airbags keep him alive when Hase was kicking him around. It was definitely a lethal upgrade at the first glance. In practice, Okarun handled it like a noob, and the suit itself wasn't very durable. With more imagination, or at least half of Kinta's mecha nerd brain, he could have done way more with the nanoskin. Sure, you could argue there wasn't enough material, but honestly it felt like he didn't use what he had in the most efficient way. A wasted opportunity for what could have been his deadliest form. And this form kinda proves my point. Not every power-up is an upgrade. The Great Kinta Hybrid form. After repeated losses to Jet Booster Kur and Jumping Crone Hase, Kinta decided to fuse their suits. The result was a giant mecha with hilariously human proportions. Okarun piloting the legs, Kinta piloting the arms. Basically Pacific Rim on a school budget. At first it seemed promising. Their defense improved, letting them block and deflect some of Hase's Jumping Crone strikes. But the offense was still a joke. Hase quickly got fed up. He launched them skyward and pounded them until even the nanoskin armor started shedding apart. That's when Okarun improvised. He merged a nearby nanoskin into Hase's legs, trapping him, then blasted upward with the jet thrusters. And finally, they dropped him. A mecha the size of a truck, plus two kids crashing down like a meteor. Even Hase's Jumping Crone powers couldn't save him from getting knocked out cold. The final form of Okarun is one we are yet to see, the Oni Club form. And this form has so much potential that Okarun himself might end up as the show's final boss. After Momo and Seiko went to search for the cure, Manjiro showed up and handed Okarun the Oni Club, the legendary ogre's kanabo. Now for the first time, Okarun's getting a proper training arc, and this is where things get wild. There's a Japanese proverb, Oni ni kanabo, an ogre with an iron club. It means and represents an unstoppable, invincible force. With the club in hand, strength, destruction, and brutality are amplified to near godlike levels. If Okarun channels his spiritual energy, especially that pent-up power from his restored balls, he could become an unstoppable juggernaut. But that's not the only angle. In some myths, Oni were the enforcers of hell. That means Okarun with the club might gain natural dominance over yokai and evil spirits, binding, suppressing, even condemning them outright. Humanity's ultimate exorcist. Sounds great, right? Except Oni aren't just enforcers. They're also embodiments of chaos, linked to quakes, storms, even rips in reality. If the club resonates with that, Okarun could wield seismic shockwaves that crush yokai and aliens just by existing near them. But here's the catch, the more he taps into it, the more feral he becomes. If he loses control in a final battle, Okarun doesn't just risk beating the villain, he risks becoming the ogre, the next monster his friends have to fight. Okay, now since this is just Okarun, you might be curious about all the other forms of characters in the series.